Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Personnel Committee. Straight to business. First on the agenda is apologies. Have we had apologies from Councillor Evans this evening? No, no apologies noted. Otherwise, everybody else is here. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any declarations of interests regarding the matters on the agenda this evening? No, none recorded. Thank you very much. On to item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at them, and does anyone have any amendments or comments to make on them? No. Do I have someone to propose them as an accurate record of the meeting? Councillor Furman, seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts. All those in favour? Councillor Deacon?
I wasn't here, so I should probably.
Entirely up to you whether you vote. You are still eligible to vote on them as an accurate record, whether or not you were here. You have the right to vote.
I'll abstain then.
You'll abstain. Okay, 4 and then 1 abstention. Okay. On to item 4, the forward plan for the Personnel Committee. So members to note the items in the forward plan for the Personnel Committee. Are we able to see a copy of that? To run through it very quickly with the committee. I'm afraid I didn't bring the right device to look at all of them. Apologies. Yeah. So see we have this evening's items on the agenda, and then looking forward, we've got the 4th of June. We've got disciplinary policy, the staff handbook, dignity at work policy, equal opportunities policy, the grievance policy, appeals policy, training policy, recruitment and induction process, and the disability confident committed employer status, which is a relatively new addition. Looking forward to that one. Ooh. And then so that's quite a lot to have on the docket for the 4th of June. And then looking ahead to the 30th of July, we've got the sickness absence policy, capability policy, whistleblowing policy, and the white ribbon initiative, which I'm not familiar with. And that's it until the October meeting with redundancy policy. Could you explain a bit more, just in brief, about the white ribbon initiative?
So it's women's safety is the umbrella that it would fall under. So we've just recently put in a grant application for some funding from Avon and Somerset Police, and our cause is going to be for a communication campaign around young males. So London did something similar with their mayor, and it's about having calling out friends in toxic sort of conversational terms, and the white ribbon is another accolade that we can put in as part of that. So
okay, something to look forward to. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Just a procedural point. The forward plan that's actually on the website in this pack is different to that updated one, I think. So it's just making sure that that goes through into our minutes, showing that forward plan. What I'm looking at here doesn't have the disability confident status, I don't think, does it?
Yeah, that's a new, I think that's a relative new addition, okay, as well as the white ribbon one. Cool. Did you want to say a little bit about the disability confident committed employer status? I know that's.
I can put that one. That one was really last minute because I thought it was going to be a longer process, and when I came down to do it, it took about half an hour. So I just did it, assuming that we would that it would. A big assumption that we would like to go for it, and there are levels 1, 2, and 3. So the one that we've got at the moment is the level 1, which was a very light touch tick box sort of exercise, and then the level 2 would be something to discuss at our next meeting about moving forward with that proposal.
Roberts.
Mine is to add on to this, actually, maybe for just something to be investigated, is one about being dementia aware that you can do. It just that disability confident made me think about that you can, I think, get disability awareness status. I want to say SWT or even Taunton Borough Council did it at one point. And then the other, which has totally gone out of my head again. I'll come back to it because I've totally lost the other awareness. Oh no, that's it, the orange button campaign. The orange button is about suicide awareness.
Okay.
So that's right, isn't it, Tom? We do the Orange Button in Somerset Council. So you can do, as well as being mental health first aiders, you can go and wear an orange button, which is like another level to look at whether that's what we do for our employees, but also what we do as a council that kind of sits alongside that to look at suicide awareness.
Perfect, thank you. Something else to research? Okay. Otherwise, any other comments on the forward plan? Otherwise, I propose that we note that with the amendment to go into the online version, which was this version was submitted. Seconder for notice, Councillor Deakin. Everyone in favour? All in favour. Thank you very much. Do you need this copy back, Nikki? No. Thank you. On to item 5, the compassionate and bereavement leave policy. Who is presenting on this one? That will be Nikki. Got to run through.
Hopefully it's not all me today.
Yeah.
Yes, so our leave policy previously contained the sections on compassionate leave and bereavement leave, special leave. So we put it into a policy in its own right. So the main updates are that the council offers up to 3 days paid leave for compassionate purposes currently, and with some exceptional circumstances considered. Most organisations, when I researched, offered between sort of 5 to 10 days. So a couple of those would be 10 days for Somerset Council, Weymouth Town Council was 5 days paid, NHS again is up to 10 days. So this new policy, we've extended that to allow employees up to 5 days in a 12-month period, and keeping in that exceptional circumstance, which would run past the town clerk for approval. We've also taken out any sort of terms in line with so who would be eligible. For example, previously it said things like you would need to have somebody like your mum or your dad or grandparents, particularly, but we're sort of recognising that actually, you know, modern life is quite complicated, and it might be better to use the term loved one to allow some flexibility around that. To try to, and I have sort of put a caveat in that, given that the town council is quite a small organisation, SLT meet regularly, so it might be that, you know, different cases that come through, they can have a discussion about sort of what's been agreed previously to allow some consistency across the organisation. There is a proposed change to the Employment Rights Bill, which is looking like it will come in sort of earliest 2026. So currently the parental bereavement leave policy allows people the bereavement leave if they've lost a baby after 24 weeks gestation. The new legislation coming in is looking at prior to 24 weeks gestation baby loss. So we've incorporated this into our policy early. We thought that would be a fair and right thing to do. And the last change is that a section has been added to the policy regarding pet bereavement, so the pet, because we recognise that this could have an impact on our employees. It doesn't necessarily mean time off, it might just be allowing some flexibility for that employee.
I just want to say thank you very much for being really proactive on this and looking ahead at that legislation rather than waiting for it to come in. I think it's a smart thing to do to recognise that that's the way things are moving, and actually we may as well be forward thinking on that. So thank you very much. I know I had discussed the pet leave and that, but you were saying there's not a set amount of time. It doesn't mention specific time off. It is just a discussion on a case-by-case basis. Seems quite sensible. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I've just got a few questions. Why do we not go up to 10 days rather than 7, and just allow it at the flexibility of managers rather than the 7-day cut-off? Or is that just something to look at in the future? I just think that it's still not that long a time for what people are going through. So I feel like 10 days, where it's also 2 weeks really in that kind of time capacity, it's 2 lots of 5-day chunks, is probably far easier to think about rather than go, oh, it happened on a Monday and I've only got till the following Wednesday off. Does that make sense? Actually, 2 weeks feels just something right in that way. So I would be comfortable going to 10 days if it was manager's discretion. In looking at how we phrased it on page 5, I would say I've chosen the right page numbers of the policy. I probably think that this is just the way that we have to word things when we look at how we've detailed about parental bereavement leave, but how it works in practice would be very different. It just says the employee must inform their manager before they start their leave, as long as it's before they are due to start work. And I just kind of feel like it feels very arbitrary. That's probably not what we mean by it, but it's like, actually, we probably will just deal with it on a case by case basis. But if it is that we need to have some hard words for policy, fine. But I hope that we are fluid in how we deal with people who are probably going through the toughest thing that they will ever go through. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does. It
I
absolutely makes sense. It was basically that part, because of the notification requirements, it was literally lifted from the government.
And that's what I thought, yeah. So I read it going, this sounds really government-y, because he's talking about how there's also something that I think, again, which feels like it's government because it feels like it's like mat pay, where it says at least 26 weeks continuous service. That feels like, is it because we claim money back for statutory sick pay rather than actually because
yeah, it's a statutory payment.
It's a statutory payment. Whereas in my world, if someone lost their child and they'd only been with us 2 weeks, they deserve to have time off and be paid for it, even if we can't claim back the statutory amount, because it is, again, the most horrific thing I can ever imagine anyone's got to go through. So I just feel slightly uncomfortable that you've got to work here 26 weeks in, I guess it's because of the pay. But yeah,
that is something that is also proposed legislation, that it's a day one right.
so I personally feel it's a day one right. If that's what's coming in, let's put it in from now. I don't know enough about how HR pay works, but if we've got to suck up the salary for 2 weeks of someone because they've lost a child, well, yeah.
Is it something that would be covered by insurance? And I know you can have maternity pay insurance.
Maybe for us as an organisation.
As an organisation, that's my experience with being a school governor. Is there's generally kind of quite healthy maternity pay insurance. Is it something that would be covered? I mean, I'm assuming it's an unlikely event,
yeah,
that this would even have to be used, and it's.
But I just feel like if we're not going to pay someone because they haven't worked for us for 6 months, I would rather just pay them. Yeah.
I think from a management point of view, I could imagine the conversations saying, yes, you can have the time off, but we're going to have to dock your pay, being quite horrendous to actually have that conversation.
And we're not, and because we are a town council, we have to work by policy, unlike private businesses who probably can fluidly go, actually, well, we've got discretion to pay you. Whereas here, we're saying this is our policy, and the policy is that we won't pay you.
We could amend it, can't we, then, to say from
Day one, yeah.
day one.
Are you making that as a
I'm
proposal?
making that proposal because
Okay.
I just don't, yeah.
Councillor Foreman, seconding that. All in favour of amending that to a day one?
Yeah.
All in favour. Thank you very much. And I really hope we never have to
Yeah.
use it for
Yeah.
all the right reasons.
Can I just ask on just in terms of delegation, so where there are exceptional circumstances and things that goes to the town clerk to make the decision, which is absolutely fine. Just thinking of the circumstances when the town clerk's not in and not working, do we need to name who in their absence, or is that just kind of written into the constitution anyway that the deputy would?
It would automatically go to Marcus because he deputises in my absence.
Fine, so we don't need to write it in the policy. That's part of our constitution. Is that fine? Okay, I just wanted to check that. Fine.
I've just realised I also need to make another proposal, is that we go up to the 10 days, not the 7 days. And that's at the discretion of whatever the discretion process
Is it
is.
discretionary in discussion with the line manager?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lee seconding that. All those in favour of extending it to 10 days? That's unanimous. Again, I hope it's something that we don't ever have
Yeah.
to exercise. Do we have any more suggestions or amendments? for this
Sorry.
Policy, Councillor Smith-Roberts.
No, I'm okay. No, I'm
No,
saying
no,
sorry.
you're absolutely
I'm saying sorry. I'm saying sorry.
Go. In which case, would someone like to propose that we adopt this policy considering the amendment that we've just agreed? Councillor Lees, a seconder, Councillor Smith-Roberts, all in favour? Thank you very much. We move on to item 6, which is the leave policy. So members to review and approve the leave policy.
Sorry, it's me again.
Yep.
As we've just spoken about, the compassionate leave and parental bereavement leave section has been removed from this policy. But other than that, there has been some minor updates to the remaining content. And these are reducing the level of approvals to line manager level. So as our organisation grows, we wanted to delegate decision making to a lower level. Notice of requesting leave requirements. So it was previously 4 weeks, and that's been adjusted to be proportionate to the amount of time you are looking to take off. There hadn't been the increase in NJC Green Book leave, so we've uplifted that, which is 23 days minimum. There's some instructions about for those who work on a bank holiday or a public holiday been added, and also added in a plan to or the manager to and the employee to make a plan to take any carryover of annual leave to avoid it happening again and again year on year.
I'm just checking, do we allow people to buy additional leave?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Is it something that we would look at? Do we ever get requests where people need some additional leave? Because I'm allowed to buy an extra 5 days a year, and I want to say I can actually sell leave back if it's above the statutory minimum. I want to say, does that sound, yeah?
Yeah, it's something that I've spoken to our finance manager about. So yeah, it's something that we are considering, but obviously that would need to come to committee.
Okay, it was just while I read this, I went, oh, I think actually there might be people that sometimes say they are getting married or they've got big birthdays and they want extra leave to deal with all the stuff that they're doing. Yeah, that would be something so that they then can do that.
I've not had that question yet.
I've not had a,
Okay, good.
yeah, not so
Might be enough
wouldn't I?
Yeah, and then when that happens, I think I can only maximum carry forward a week every year, and then they might buy.
That's
Yeah,
it's a week. So
yeah. It was just maybe something for us to consider around how people's lives are flexible nowadays.
yeah, I think I'm less keen on having the ability to sell back stuff you haven't taken, because I think it's really important for staff to take leave.
Yeah.
And for managers to make sure that staff take the appropriate amount of leave for their own well-being through the year, rather than being busy, getting to the end and saying, I've got 3 weeks worth of leave, can I buy it back? I think it's really important to manage the leave process for everyone's benefit, to make sure it's taken, and so that the staff don't suddenly all need to take a month off in March and there's no council left. I know this is it's a thing that happens in most organisations where it's a last minute push to not waste any. But I'd rather see that managed than have that encourage the facility for people to not take leave, because I think it's a really important thing to do.
Good for your wellness.
Yeah.
Just on the where we say a week's leave carried over, can we just put the number of days on that, just so it's not?
I think it's different for different people, because if you only work 2 days a week,
Okay, so the equivalent of your
or the working week is pro rata.
okay. Can we a working week's leave, only because
Or pro rata.
Yeah,
pro
'cause
rata
a week, it could be 5, it could be 7. People misread that. It's a nitpick, but
Pro rata working week.
yeah, something like that. Just makes it very clear that's respective of your usual working. Well, yes.
Just to clarify
Yeah,
that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's. I don't think there's anything in here around kind of time boxing leave through the year, is there? So so I think that, and I understand, and I think it should be the discretion of managers to manage that through the year. I think the risk with leave is always that people don't take it, and then it gets to the last quarter, and it's suddenly half the organisation are out, but because it's all. So I think that's just what we need to, from a management point of view, just avoid, because it causes all sorts of operational problems.
I think it's very much that is a management task to
Absolutely.
keep tabs on when staff are taking leave.
That's something that's integrated into the one-to-ones. So when we have the
Okay.
one-to-ones with staff, we look at what leave that they've got left and when they could take it.
Yeah, some people are better at self-managing that, and other people forget that it's something. I'm fully aware that I'm one of those people. So
Yeah, I'm rubbish.
that's just me.
The other thing that I just don't see in there is charity leave. And whether we do charity leave here.
Living leave.
I'm sorry?
Do you mean volunteer?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good point. I don't think we have discussed that, but we could.
It's councils do it, don't they?
Yeah, Somerset Council allow, it's normally 3 days for volunteering, up to 5 days with your manager's discretion, specifically for volunteering, and that's separate from outside body duties like parish council duties. It's specifically for volunteering. I know some like particularly Somerset Council, sometimes they will organise a volunteer day and ask, offer for staff members to come and join in and organise things. It might be that someone already volunteers with Citizens Advice or similar and may want time out.
Or if they're like like they're trustees and they can use that time pro-rated to then do that trustee duty.
School governor, school governors particularly.
I guess it encourages active involvement into communities, doesn't it? And there's upskilling that can come from that.
Bryony?
I was just going to ask the question, would you want to specify that it was within, just given that we're Taunton Town Council, would you want any specification about it being within our remit?
I think
for it to be.
I mean, in some ways, it would be really nice to encourage people to volunteer within the town.
I think volunteering in general is, for me, the thing.
Donna?
We do the for school governors, because we had a request recently actually to under public duties. So that
comes under the public duties.
Yeah, it's not volunteers, so it would have to be, I suppose, another section added to this.
I have to say that when I was at Somerset Council, I was a school governor, I always took it as part of my volunteering days, and it was only very late that I found a whole other policy that I didn't know existed that meant I could have just had that automatically. So it's, those things quite often get lost. Councillor Furley.
I think restricting it just to activities within Taunton would be detrimental, because there's all sorts of volunteering that goes around the southwest that people would want to be doing anyway. So I think
not all our staff live in Taunton either, so it's
very true. It might be local volunteering. I'm assuming we'd want to include this within the leave policy rather than have a separate volunteering policy. Apart from anything, from my experience, if it's separated out, it's more likely that people will miss it and it doesn't get calculated in together. Does that mean we can't agree this policy now without that inclusion?
You could, if there was an amendment, you could say with an amendment to add an additional volunteers leave of however many days you decide to be added into the policy. Make that amendment.
Delegate the wording out.
I mean, I'd suggest similar to Somerset Council's, which is 3 days. 3 days up to 5 days with the manager's discretion.
Paid volunteer leave.
Paid volunteer leave. But it has to be evidenced as to what you're actually doing.
And it needs to be, I think, something in the wording, either with a registered charity or an acknowledged community group.
Yeah.
I think that's the wording I've got in. I've seen, isn't it?
It's like, an established body or a constituted community group. Happy to leave the exact wording to you to nail that down as specific. Do we need to vote on that as an amendment?
I'll propose it.
I will second it. All those in favour of adding the volunteering leave as just discussed? All in favour, thank you very much. It feels quite nice to be discussing positive time off in this policy. Quite a nice change. Are there any other comments or queries on this particular policy? Do I have someone to propose that we accept this policy with the amendment that we've just agreed? Councillor Smith-Roberts, seconded by Councillor Furman. All those in favour of accepting this policy or recommending it to full council? No?
No.
Brilliant too? No. It's been a very long day. Item 7, the criminal disclosure checks policy. Less fun. Okay. Is this you again, Nikki?
Yeah, sorry.
Let's run through that, thank you.
So criminal record check policy, again, it's already existent, and it's just a review, and again some minor amendments to the policy. Something that was continued through the current policy was the mention of us retaining the certificates, but they're not for us to retain, they're for the individual. So I've removed any reference to the council retaining DBS certificates. We would just get the required information that we needed and store that. We've also added in an additional place for the information to be stored, because we need to make sure for business continuity and disaster recovery purposes that we retain this information in 2 places. So we've got it in SharePoint and now within the council's HR system, which is Staffology.
Question, sorry.
Roberts.
Do we pay for them if we've got anyone that needs them as part of their role, and do we pay to keep them on the rolling register? Though I think the rolling register is changing or something. I'm sure I had an email about one of my DBSs, but do we pay for that for the employee, for those that need it as part of their role? Yeah, perfect.
Councillor Lees.
On similar vein as to Frederica's, would that apply to someone who wanted to volunteer with a children's group, for example? Would you pay for their DBS check as well?
I'm assuming not if it wasn't council work. Yeah.
So there is a volunteer policy which is being worked on at the moment by Paul Grant, so I can pick that up with him and make sure that that's covered off.
It wouldn't be for, it would only be for staff members then, wouldn't be for volunteers as such.
And the certificate only covers you for work in this job. It's not transferable. So if you were a brownie leader,
I feel like
you couldn't use it, and vice versa. If you were cleared for working with the brownies, you couldn't then use it for this. It's a frustration with the system that you have to have one for each position.
I was just wondering whether the mayor needs one because of all their interactions with vulnerable individuals. Just so as interestingly, I think we as councillors at Somerset Council have had to have an enhanced DBS, haven't we, because of the way that we are corporate parents, but also just to say, actually, I was just wondering whether the mayor particularly should have one because of the fact that they go out and meet lots of vulnerable individuals, just as an added check.
So
or whether we all councillors have an enhanced DBS just so that
we shouldn't be putting people through enhanced DBSs unless they meet the criteria, and it's quite strict. You can't put somebody through an enhanced DBS unless it's they're eligible.
Yeah.
When we've gone through the previous checks, the basic check would be sufficient. I can run it past Somerset Council. Have previously sort of done any sort of enhanced checking for us, and they can run past the mayor again if you'd like, but previously, because it's not regular contact with the same vulnerable, and they wouldn't be on their own, I know that our mayor's driver, Sergeant Mace, has got an enhanced check.
It was just because we've had them at Somerset Council, haven't we?
Yeah, I assume that's the corporate parenting bit.
I think it was just a standard thing that we wanted done in the end.
Do we all have enhanced ones or do we have standards? I think,
No, I thought we had to have it.
I don't know if every.
It might be worth just finding that out as to, yeah, because we know that we've definitely had.
Because I remember having to request an enhanced one because I was doing some school visits.
Yeah.
So yes, we might have standard as just the.
Yeah, and whether actually we want all our councillors just to have.
Yeah, I think-
ones.
The cost of putting someone through.
Basic is about 30.
It's not.
No, so then it's
Basic's relatively negligible. How much is the enhanced one?
I think.
yeah,
So it's not cost prohibitive.
no, then it's about, is it 11 or 13 pounds for the update?
Yeah, like roll, yeah,
Yeah.
13 for a rolling.
Yeah, so it's not a hugely costly thing. It does feel like as people in positions of relative power, I mean, very relative power.
We went and met children last week. Okay, we were never on our own with them, but we did go and meet children last week, didn't we, Tom and I?
And we're looking at projects possibly working with primary schools, with community groups, with whilst it's not regular and with the same group specifically. I don't know whether there is a sort of a due diligence element to it. But I don't know what's normal for other councils or councils of this particular size. I know we're in a bit of an in-between place size-wise.
Do many of the roles that we have require checks so far? No.
The roles that I know that the culture officer basic check. But no, we haven't had any roles that would be eligible, certainly not for enhanced.
Park maintenance people, toilet. No.
No, Donna?
I had a check done when I was appointed, I was.
It's not something I feel uncomfortable having that I've had DBS checks for various different organisations and institutions. I've had something to do with. I was quite surprised that I didn't have to for this role, but if we don't qualify, then I understand that. It just
Interesting what SOG or NOG say.
Yeah, I would be interested to know. I think particularly the people who are out and about interfacing with the community most often, they're the people I think.
That's why I said interesting for employees, like our toilet
Yeah.
team and our
park
park
maintenance.
maintenance team. Interesting,
It was just basic, not necessarily enhanced, but like, I don't know. Because they loan work as well sometimes. So I don't know, it depends how risk averse or not we are, I guess, as an organisation, but it feels like we should cover stuff on.
So I think, yeah, I'm certainly happy we can go through the basic checks. I think my previous experience, we had open spaces working on schools contracts and they didn't qualify for enhanced checks.
Okay.
Because
Wow.
they were out doing when they were doing the work, often the children were inside, there was, but because of the contract that we had with Somerset Council, we had to get them enhanced checks. So there might be, it may be that moving forward, we do that. But as I said, we have been sort of met with previously, like there is strict criteria to put someone for an enhanced check. I can certainly get some advice from and I'll speak to Somerset Council.
Criteria because the people doing the checks won't do it, or is it because it's an intrusion on the person having the check done on them?
It's
You're
it's
not
the DBS, it's
you can't
DBS.
require them to submit to it.
Yeah, it's DBS and eligibility. Way round.
I don't think that prohibits policy going forward as it stands, but it's something to look about in the future. Does anyone else have anything to add to that policy? In which case, do I have someone to propose the approval of this? Councillor Furman, seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts. Everyone in favour? All say aye. Thank you very much. moving on to item number 8, the rehabilitation of offenders policy. It's all a bit law and order. Is this you,
All together.
is this you presenting again, Nick?
Yes, sorry.
Don't apologise. Thank you for all your hard work.
I'll pass over to Brian in a minute. Again, this was a policy that needed reviewing in line with the policy schedule. The minor updates was we've added in some criteria for consideration when we're looking at applicants or employees who have got criminal conviction. And also the addition of our intentions to do some partnership working with organisations who plan community payback work for individuals, which is something that Donna has been working on. So that's hopefully with possibly providing some work experience placements at the council.
Councillor Furman, then I'll come to Councillor Hood.
So what is the kind of main considerations they would have to go through if we are working to take on someone for the rehabilitation?
So are you talking about an applicant for a role?
I guess so, yes.
Yes. A lot of it, I mean, it does go through it in terms of like the recruitment process. A lot of it will depend on the type of conviction. But obviously, you know, even if it's a spent conviction, it might need some further checks depending on the type of role that the person is applying for. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Is this the items in it's part 7? So
Yeah.
the individual's age at the time of the offence, how long ago the offence was, the offence itself, all of those questions. That's in section 7. Is that what you were aiming for? Okay. So kind of a broader understanding of, it's contextual and kind of case by case basis as to what the risk might be. Obviously, and a bearing on what position we would actually be giving them. I know there was a discussion about, yes, depending on the nature of the offence, certain positions might not be suitable. Councillor Deacon, you had a question.
No, but I'm just on the community payback. I'm just really pleased that we're doing that. I know there's been success as part of the North Taunton Willoway project, where community payback have done a lot of work on site, and I know that then some of the people who took part in that scheme then went on to go and take on apprenticeships and work for the building companies that were working up there. So I think if we find people, and they've done some amazing work at the payback scheme in my area, grounds work, and frankly, if there are people there who are keen, hard workers and want to come and learn from us and maybe even become employees in the future, I think that's a brilliant thing for us to be doing.
Donna?
Just to reiterate on that, during the meeting that we had the other day, that was a conversation that I'd spoke with them about, and we said that we would potentially look to do some work experience for some of these people as well, so they could work not just on the Saturday doing the payback scheme, but we could offer them some work Monday to Friday, where they would go out with potentially open spaces team, where we'd have some vacancies with the view to obviously taking them on in the future, which they said it was a key opportunity for people, which was really positive.
I think it's really positive. I know that Timpson's is obviously a really famous case of companies that have worked really well with ex-offenders. I think a huge part of their workforce are former offenders. That's been a really good way of rehabilitating them. So it'd be nice to know that we could do something similar. Any other comments or questions on that one? Do I have someone to propose it? Councillor Deacon, seconded by Councillor Leese. All those in favour of this policy? Unanimous. Thank you very much. On to item 9, organisational development strategy. Is that moving across to Bryony?
Absolutely. Should have said, shouldn't I? Go ahead, Nikki.
This is your moment to shine.
So I've included the actual strategy, and there is a covering report, but just to give a bit of flavour to it. So we had the training policy has been in our forward plan for a while and has been deferred for a while, and hopefully this will start to make sense why. So this strategic document which I've uploaded is very high level. It will hopefully be the overarching theme of what is to come later. So we're currently working really hard at a very thorough and in-depth skills audit, which will mean that we've got a very tailored training programme. But the strategic document is that hopefully highlights our intentions, what our ambitions are going to be, and the theme of what's to come. So I'm more than happy to take any questions about it. I do appreciate it is quite high level, but I'm hopeful that over time, and especially when we come to look at training later on, and particularly the skills audit, it will you'll start to see the natural flow of some of those ambitions come through that.
I just wanted to with the leadership development. Is it right that you understand that my understanding is that you're looking at sort of a lot more devolved leadership and kind of more middle management training to foster succession planning?
Absolutely.
Is that part of that strategy?
Yeah, so that will be, I don't know if I've necessarily named it in the strategy, it's definitely part of the training policy. So the skills audit at the moment is not to go too much into it because that's not why we're here. I can't help talking about it. We're looking at the service requirement as well as the personal requirement. So that is something that's been highlighted, is that we've got quite a few, whereas our SLT team have had a lot of investment and resources pumped into them, we're aware that we've got a level of management now that also needs that same development opportunity. So we've identified where to enhance some of those skills, where we feel like we could grow in-house some of those skills, and that is reflected in that skills audit. But I don't know if I've actually named that. I hopefully have named it in the strategic document, but if not, the detail, you'll start to see that come across when we look at the training policy.
So I guess my query is around, because the strategy makes sense, is how do we see what flows from that as like a auditing point of view? So how do we monitor the impact of that strategy? Will it come through multiple different reports, or will we do a collation of one report that kind of shows, you know, we're on track for this or we're on track for that? How do we measure, I guess, our KPIs or key milestones?
Yep. So I'm really glad you said KPI, because that's the other strategic document that I'm working on. So this couldn't have planned this any better. So the training policy will be coming to this committee. It is looking like it's going to be a very chunky piece of work with a lot of detail in there, and I will make sure that it aligns closely with the ambitions that are in here, so that we can demonstrate where it's flowed through. So things like the staff development and the innovation around what sort of opportunities that we're looking to cover off in people's training and development, because we've already noticed that just through having initial conversations with team members, we're finding a lot of people are coming to us with ideas for things, so we're able to bring in that innovation and the engagement sort of level of it. So the training policy will hopefully make those intentions, bring them into life, as opposed to at the moment just being a part of theory. We're also doing our organisational, I've forgotten what it's called, another strategic document that's all about performance, organisational performance strategy as well, which talks about KPIs, and it does include our development and learning and optimisation of skills side of things. So again, I'm hoping that that will link in quite closely to this, but it was important to just sort of establish themes and what our intentions were really in the delivery of it.
Just follow-up questions, if that's okay, is, I guess, will those sit with this committee then to look at that and to look at the KPIs, or is it finance and governance that monitors output against those? Does that make sense? Where will
to go to finance and governance?
Finance and governance, it will also go to full council as well. I think every quarter it will go to full council and different committees when it needs to.
And then I guess the other thing around, maybe for the forward plan for us, if I can articulate it correctly, is around, we've obviously done the staff survey in December, we'll do one in June. In that June mop up or like results, will we give an update on actually what we did to target the December one, outcomes. Where will we measure outcomes between the December and June? Is it in a follow up on the June document, or do we see an output before we do the June survey? Does that make sense? So are we doing a you said we did in response to December, or are we going to wait to ask the same questions in June and then kind of deal with them both together?
Good question, actually. I hadn't got to that point of thinking about it. I've got to the point of realising it's going to be June in a minute and we're going to recirculate it. There were some actions that have been taken from the back of this.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, otherwise we're just doing surveys without saying to people actually what we did to listen to it. So we'll end up, maybe if we don't tell people what we did in a kind of clear way, we may end up with the same answers in our June because they don't know it's happened, or we just haven't.
It did go to staff, didn't it? Of the actions that we've taken as a result, the survey has gone to staff, but we could bring it in.
Yeah, some of them might have had timely things that needed to wait till now
Yeah,
to bed in. Does that make sense?
I suppose we could bring it as a report update to this committee to show actually what's.
We're doing the comms around releasing the staff survey as well. It would be good to, because last time we did like a pre-launch, soft launch, and then live launch of the survey. So it would be really good actually to tie that into pre-launch. Just
Good at that.
say this is why it's.
Yeah, you said we did, so now we're going to ask you some questions. Hopefully we've actually, the proof is in the puddings here. And what do we get now because of that proof is in the pudding?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's great. And one bit that I wonder, and it just might not be part of this document, is ambition to innovation. I wonder if we could slightly broaden that to innovation and collaboration, because I think one of the things particularly, and there might be a paragraph just around hybrid working. So one of the things that suffers most in hybrid working is collaboration. You have to just work that bit harder to do it and make it happen. So I wonder if there's just something in there, just references the tools and systems that we have to enable and foster really good collaboration, both within operational teams, but also across them as well. Because I think that's the thing that we don't want to accidentally wander into, is really siloed working, which I think is in here. So that's the only comment I had on it, is whether we just want to just put some wording in around collaboration as well. It looks great.
Are you happy to add just add an amendment?
Yes, yeah. I would
Into
put all those thoughts. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or contributions on that strategy? So do we have someone to propose approving the strategy with the addition to come of just some additional wording around collaboration in the innovation section? Actually, I'm happy to propose that one myself. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Deacon, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, contracts of employment, casual workers agreement and apprenticeship agreement. Is that back to Nikki again?
Yeah, a little bit.
So just a review of our templates in line with any legislative and best practice changes, and we've been working with WorkNest with those to get them checked off. There has been the main change is the notice period to be given by the employer. We talked about this at length at agenda setting. Previously, it was the minimum that we could give legislatively, and that could be 1 week in the first 2 years of employment. So the employee could just give notice, and the employee would need to give us either a month or 3 months, depending on the level of the role. So this has been amended to change to provide slightly more notice. So after 1 month and up to successful completion of probation, it would be a week's notice, and then following that it would be at least a month. So we think that would be fairer for the employee. The other changes, minor, it's the level of approval, and also we've added in carers leave because that wasn't referred to previously. and the casual workers agreement has been reviewed with no significant changes. Obviously, you might be aware that there may be some legislation coming in about casual workers, but that won't be until 2026. Currently we have 2 casual workers, who may be affected by that legislation.
Is that the sergeant at Mace? Sergeants at Mace.
Sergeant.
Yes.
But yes, we will.
I'm quite happy with, they were discussed quite lengthily during the agenda setting process, so I'm quite happy that, oh yeah, the ID things have been thrashed out. Does anyone else have anything? Not Councillor Smith-Roberts. Disappointed. In that case, would someone like to propose that we approve the agreements? Councillor Smith-Roberts, do I have a seconder? Councillor Lees, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 11, team building programme 2025 to 26.
This is me.
This is Donna.
So this is on there just obviously for members to note, we have concluded our 2024-25 team building programme. Last week was the last one. Your teams, they have been really well received by the staff members. So we've put the programme in place for next year. So this was the document that was shared with all staff. There's been a couple of changes to it. So each of the service areas, their day that they have to organise has to come back to our team values. So we're constantly, reliving and installing them in the staff members. They're not so frequent. We was doing once a month before, but obviously as the team has grown, it's not so easy to do all of the staff members. But that also then gives the opportunity for the individual service areas to have their own team date with the opposite month to when we're having the full team building programme. And yet the schedule's in there, it's been put through the year, everyone's had it in their calendars. There's another addition that's been added, and that's a feedback form as well, so staff members can do some feedback. So we've got things to compare it on about, what they enjoyed about the day, what it covered off as well. You'll notice in there that there is a summer event it's a joint event for staff and councillors. And the hope is that we can organise. It's got mine and Marcus's name as organisers, but it'd be something that we would like this committee to be involved with. So you get the buy-in of planning and preparing the event with us as well.
No pressure, folks.
No pressure.
Okay. Sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, I think. Yes, there's no point congratulating and putting such a great programme that all the staff are going to have to work on and then sit back and watch it all. I know this was discussed in the pre-meeting, but I would just like to note officially on record that it's a really lovely document. It's been put together really beautifully. And who was the staff member who?
It's Lena. She's done a fabulous. I sent her a Word document with all of the information, and she turned it looking like this, and it exceeded my expectations of what it was. Yeah,
it's a fantastic job. It just makes it actually really easy to take the information in. So well done for putting that together. It's a really nice document. Smith-Roberts.
I have got some questions. I don't know whether it relates to team building or whether that it's separate to team building. One, is there something around the leadership team doing some form of team building? So like the heads of each area and how they build relationships as a management team, whether that's actually classed as team building on a way afternoon, I don't know, because you can see that there's the different events organised, but I think there's something about that. I don't know whether then that leads me on to something around the leadership team and the chairs of committees having something where they build relations and look at what made me think about this is we set the budget in February. How do we then build what that is against our corporate goals and work as a team between councillors and officers to make that happen? And is there something needed at the beginning of the year to kind of set that direction, strategies and aims? Because the budget puts it into practice, but how do we make, there's just something there about an event.
That's definitely something that we can look at. As far as the team building for the SL team, we've done a lot of that this year with the programs that we've been doing. I've actually organised, I've booked us all to go to the there's an SLCC traders event in Exeter in June, I think it is. So I've booked all of the it was free as well. So I've booked all of the SLT team on there to attend this event. So it's looking at all the different trades in the area that can offer stuff. So there is different things that we can do like that. But I take the point about having away days, and then again doing that with the chairs of committees and the
I think it'll just build that cohesion, collaboration, and just getting to know each other, as much as then setting the direction. Or if it's half yearly and going, okay, we said we wanted this in February, where are we 6 months in? Because what do we need to achieve for the next 6 months? Is it realistically? And I know we get all reports that say this is where we are, these are our KPIs, but actually, is that working?
That's fine. I could pick that up, I might pick your brains after and to get what.
Well, that's dangerous, but yeah.
And then I can come up with something for that.
And I know I'm probably digging a hole for myself here. I get very carried away in these meetings about how much I want to do and then go away and kick myself. At least my partner does. Obviously, these are team building events for the staff. I don't know how much relevance there is in potentially extending that to relevant committee members, whether it's much more about the team. And whether the activities, whether it's actually appropriate that you have councillors attending. I don't know if that's something that you'd thought.
Well, maybe you tack something on the end where you get to meet the team. So like we're with such a big organisation now, I know who to bug if I have a blue sky idea, but I don't think I necessarily know all the 60 staff members now, and I'm not expected to know all 60 staff members, but it might be that I don't need to bug certain people and I could bug other people. Does that make sense? Maybe it's another event, and I don't want to create events for events, but maybe at the end of a team building event, councillors can just come in and I don't know.
Bryony?
Oh, I was just going to say, so at the moment one of the themes that we've got into, because we rarely have one activity for the whole day, it gets split into different bits. So the last team day that we had last week, our democratic services officer stood up and gave, so Ollie, who stood up and gave like a half an hour overview about what he does, and it was those sort of segments are really useful. So even if we look to do something like that, like a segment at the end of the day where you were included and we, everyone had a cup of tea and a bit of a.
Just to build on that, I was having a conversation with a new staff member in one of my teams at SCE, and don't get me wrong, it is a huge organisation, but they truly didn't get what I did as a lead member and what our roles were as politicians. So it just reiterates that kind of how things work, and actually does that make sense?
Sorry, I'm nodding. Sorry, Chair. Don and I spoke about this last week, the week before. So off the back of the town meeting actually, which we had, where I thought of the interface, I think is quite interesting. I think our staff also deserve that from us as councillors. So because I think we often are in a fortunate position, or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, but we hear directly from the public on things, from our residents, and I think we should have the ability to also play that back into our staff. So our staff who are here hard working every day don't necessarily always hear the things that we do when we go out on the doorstep and someone's really complimentary about something we've done or has some feedback to give us. There should probably be a way of us also helping to communicate that back in to the organisation.
I'm quite interested in the idea that I don't know all the people, and I
think
started, I was part of the interview panel for quite a few posts, which is lovely. I knew all those people were.
No.
The organisation's got that much bigger that I don't know. I know the people at the top of most of the trees, but I don't know a lot of the people out there at the coalface doing a lot of that work that we're making decisions about. And I think it's really important for us to actually know who all the people are. what their experience is like, and for them to know who.
Also for them to know that we value them. I bumped into
Yeah.
our toilet team the other day and, you know, they're doing a great job and I told them so, and, you know, because we don't get as many complaints as we used to, but it was nice to actually see the people that are doing the stuff that we're so passionate about and are actually doing the day-to-day grunt work.
Absolutely, because we've got most, if you okay, that kind of 60 people organisation size, we're pretty much there, aren't we? I know there's a few gaps to fill, but I think is what's made it possibly trickier over the past bit is because it's been so quick that the organisation has grown. But now we're at a place where it's going to consolidate now in terms of the numbers. I think I totally agree.
And yeah, if there are daytime events, it might be that quite a lot of councillors may or may not be able to attend. But it'd be something to think about to be able to possibly to have some kind of interface, whether they're included the invite as an open invite, whether there was a segment at the end of the day for those councillors who could spare the time and wanted to. I think there could be some value in mixing us up a bit and getting to know the team.
I don't mind having a look and trying to pick something up, and maybe I could contact you because we did have a discussion about it the other day, and how we can integrate something into that and maybe come up with.
Yeah, and I appreciate the last summer event. The councillor attendance was very low, and it can be really hard for those of us with day
I think we've
jobs.
got bigger notice. I think we've got bigger notice this time. I was just thinking that actually that my diary I can maybe free up more.
Yeah, if we have got that annual programme, then it might be easier for us to actually plan ahead and say this is actually a really important thing to get to know the teams that we're making decisions.
We've definitely got like our whole. Julio has been putting every single meeting into my diary today.
Everything.
It's in my diary.
So the name that
No, I was like, oh wow, I've got up until 2026.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, that's just to expand on what's a really good programme. If that's
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can
Yeah.
that'd be really good.
And I think it's really positive that every team member is included in these, so we don't split between people who are in the office and people who are out. Like every team member, and I think that's really, really good, and we should keep doing that.
And it's mandatory.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of staff saying, I'm really busy, can I do this? No, you are attending.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that it is mandatory.
Yeah.
We have any more input on that? Councillor Furman?
Yeah, just to say, because they are during the weekday, I myself wouldn't be able to do it, but I know some would. So.
Okay, that's fine. I can.
Yeah, no, definitely couldn't make it mandatory for councillors because we're not paid employees, don't have the same power, but it would be nice where appropriate if the option could be there in some.
That's fine. Yeah, let's have a look. I'll have a look. Okay. And then perhaps we can get together about maybe coming up with a plan for the councillors and staff, the one in June, 17th of June. Some ideas, maybe you can throw it around your group to see what you could come up with.
Okay.
We're planning in mid.
Yes. In which case, would anyone like to propose that we note this? Okay, lovely. And a seconder for that proposal? I will second it. I'm going to get in there. All those in favour? We noting the team building programme. Thank you. Item 12, access to information, motion to exclude the press and public, which I think we will have to go ahead with. To read this out, don't I? Right. During discussion of the following items, agenda items 13, 14 and 15, it may be necessary to pass the following resolution to exclude the press and public, having reflected on the presumption in favour of openness. This decision may be required because consideration of this matter in public may disclose information falling within one of the descriptions of exempt information in Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act of 1972. The subcommittee will need to decide whether, in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. The recommendation is that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business agenda items 13, 14 and 15 on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 respectively of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. And I move that we
A second.
I have lost all words. I'm proposing that we go ahead with the motion to exclude the press and public. So that's seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts. All those in favour? Thank you very much. We will now need to cease the live broadcast if we haven't already done so.